What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Drunk Fish Keeping. That is good. Tonight's video is all about coral. Where to put it, what lighting does it like, and how to keep it going. So, coral is the one thing that most reef keepers desire over anything. If you're going to keep a reef tank, you want to have beautiful, stunning pieces of coral that really give that pizzazz to the tank. That a fish just cannot do. And I used to be a fish only guy, and my first piece of coral was a green star polyp, and I've still got him, and it looks great. Here's the thing with coral that a lot of beginners I think sometimes have a hard time with. There's millions of species of coral. Some are good in the aquarium setting, some you don't want to try. There's a lot of coral out there that's gorgeous, and there's a lot of very expensive pieces of coral. And it's a big investment when you get into the reef keeping hobby. In fact, coral will cost you more money than a fish 99% of the time. Some rare species of fish, certain angels, certain tangs, certain bottom feeding guys that are rare, you don't see as much, may outstrip a piece of coral in price. But coral usually reigns king for a livestock expense in most reef tanks, and for a good reason. Coral can be kind of hard to keep if you don't know what you're doing. Case in point, acans. Acans are great, for a beginner, but they're not a photosynthetic coral. They're a coral that actually likes to be fed. In fact, I've got a couple pieces of them in the tank. I'll show you guys. So you got this one here, and he's doing pretty good. This one, not so hot. He had some issues. This is in my girlfriend's tank. I pulled him out. This is another good example. This is a red jewel gonoporia. Kind of trying to bring him back to health. You can see he's bleached out. From what he was gorgeous. He's just declined. But it can be fixed. And there's a beautiful, just standard hammer. Green metallic hammer, nothing special, but just a pretty piece. I got my war paint Favi up here. It's not doing so hot, I had to move him. And then, got a nice piece of purple octospawn here, Duncan up there in the corner, blue-green Sympodia up top that I had to move. My rock hard bubble that will never die apparently. The big Turbinaria, green star polyps up here. Green star polyps over here. So, nothing super duper crazy as far as coral goes in this tank. But one of the big things is placement. Some corals like a lot of light, some don't. Some like medium lighting. Flow is a big thing. You got to have good flow. Some corals like more flow than others, so placement becomes a key point in that. If you have a coral that enjoys flow, you're not going to put him on the very bottom of your tank, depending upon height, obviously. But you're not going to put him where he's out of the flow zone if he's used to catching nutrient that way. Now, some coral, like acro, they don't like a lot of flow. They like to be kind of up in center, and their lighting requirements are a little more hectic. I don't know, hectic. They're not hectic. They're just a little more demanding. They also demand perfect water conditions. Now, that is another point with coral. When you first get a piece of coral, if you're not getting a huge piece, most of it, I'm assuming you're still buying frags. That's where I get most of my coral is a frag and let it encrust so I can grow it because that's half the fun of it. I always tell people when they first buy a piece of coral is to take it and leave it on the plug so you can move it easily. It's harder to move a piece of coral if it's encrusted on a rock, then you got to crap it off the rock, you got to crack it up. It makes it harder. When you have it on a plug, you can move it, and watch it and monitor it and see where it really responds to before you permanently set it. If you permanently set it, and let's say, for example, you permanently set an acan up top around the light, it's going to bleach out. It's not going to like it, and it's going to die. If you have it on a plug, you can pop the plug off, move it where you need it, and so on and so forth. So that's just one thing I always tell people when they first start. Keep it on the plug. It doesn't look as pretty. Who cares? It'll encrust. I have a piece of coral in this tank right now, and I'm getting ready to show you. This green star polyp. there's still a plug on that. And if you can see, that star polyp has completely encrusted over that plug. You can't even tell the plug's there anymore, but it's there. The star polyp has encrusted over it. And it won't take much longer. You'll never know there was a plug there because it will be completely molded to that rock. Which is what I'm hoping with this nice little red-green zoanthid up here, is to do the same thing. It's already over the side of the plug. I tried to break it off earlier, realized that it was kind of on the plug and over the side of it. I left it where it's at, glue the plug down. The zoanthid will grow over it, and I'll have another rock crusted with a zoanthid. Easy peasy. Certain stuff, you know, you're going to get like your, you know, like a big wall octospawn or the bubbles. They have a large skeletal base to begin with, so you can kind of set those guys on the bottom or attach them to a rock. You know, like this Ghani right here. Since he is in bad shape, I'm going to keep him from permanent placement just so I can keep him where I need him. Same thing for the turbo. I want the turbo to encrust. It's starting to grow over on the shelf. So as that turbo grows, he's going to probably end up getting moved one more time, because I do want him to eventually encrust on a rock and just have a huge rock wrapped in a turbine area. That's going to take some time because they tend to grow like chalices and montes. So it's going to be a while before he really comes out into being a full dish. You know, I want like a dinner plate turbine area in there, which, you know, he's about a T-plate size now. So he's growing good, because when I got him, he was probably, you know, maybe 4 inches in diameter. Now it's up to about a solid, he's about a solid 6 inches in diameter. So there has been a lot of growth on that, but that is a year-old piece of coral from where I've had him. Placement, like I said, placement's key. Flow is key. Flow and nutrients in the tank are more beneficial to coral than lighting. I know it sounds weird. Most coral does have some form of photosynthetic help, but the nutrients in the tank make a big difference. Now, a lot of coral people realize do have to be fed gonoporias, acans, the turbos, the bubbles, the octospawn. They have mouths. They like to eat. Now, normally in the wild, as nutrients would drift through the water column at night and they start to reach out, they'll grab those nutrients, pull them in and eat them. And the hobby, you don't really have those nutrients because obviously you're dealing with an enclosed system. Also a system that most hobbyists are probably feeding at a regular interval. So there's two things you can do to feed your coral. One, you can take a syringe with a concentrated, you know, shrimps, chopped up, you know, fish meat, things like that, whatever you want to mix up. You can kill your flow to your tank at night after everything's kind of calmed down, lights are down, and feed directly, you know, in the mouths of each coral, which takes a minute. Or you could also kill all the flow in the tank, let everything settle once the lights are kind of down or off, and you could put in reef snow, which is another good thing, which basically just mimics what would be in the wild, because it's basically a mixture of different proteins and, you know, organic matters that drift and settle in the water column, so the coral has a chance to eat and continue to grow. But I would, if you're going to do a lot of coral, recommend a feeding schedule to benefit the coral, because the fish, you know, if you're feeding correctly to your fish load, there's not going to be a lot of extra left over most times, and that over time will not benefit the coral. You know, obviously there's chemical dosing with, like, you know, magnesium, calcium, things like that, and that's a whole other video as far as like what to put in a tank. But that does make a big difference. Sorry, I keep looking inside because I'm checking out the 54 gallon over here. That makes a big difference in how the coral will respond. Flow, keeping nutrients moving over the coral is a big thing, and two, making sure that they're placed in the right lighting is another big thing. That's why I always say, if you get a frag, keep it on the plug. Once you find the sweet spot where it's open and thriving, that's where you put it. The plug gives you the ability to move the coral without upsetting it too much off the bat, and then finding that sweet spot to keep it. So just like I said, another sweep of the tank here on the old 120. And you can see, you know, I still got some things on plugs until they kind of find their sweet spots. You can see my little dragon goby up there, he's happy. You can see my clowns and my mimic chocolate tang, which I actually added the other day. Yeah, just as a case in point to the Aquarius out there, if you're gonna add tangs after a powder blue, make sure they're bigger than the powder blue. Case in point, that powder blue I have is probably, he's probably got a good 4 inches dorsal to, dorsal to bottom. He's a good sized powder blue. In fact, he's actually out, so I'm gonna show him off if I can, because he's exceptionally shy. Case in point, that turbine area he's in front of is about 6 inches in diameter. So yeah, he's a good sized powder blue. Powder blues, fairly aggressive and fairly territorial. I made the mistake of putting him in here and then decided I wanted a chocolate mimic, which is also part of the Ankylosaurus branch of tangs. And the powder blue kind of bullies him a little bit, kind of keeps him in the corner. Haven't seen any damage to the mimic yet, as far as him throwing the scalpel out at him or really nipping. But he keeps him in the corner, and the mimic doesn't come out a lot. I'm hoping that'll kind of chill out as the powder blue gets used to him and realizes that there's plenty of food to eat and they don't have to worry about it. But that's going to take time. I may throw him in the 54 just to kind of give him a breather. Still debating it, but we'll see. I may even pull the powder blue and throw him in the 54 just to throw things off, but that's for another day. Definitely don't want to upset that powder blue because I've had him now for 3 months and he is doing great and I want to keep him in the tank. But that kind of ends the video for tonight. Just want to show you guys a couple things. To finish, we'll show you guys the 54 and its progress as far as, got a gold Australian hammer, blastoma up there, it's closed up, octospawn, and a green gonoporia. As far as coral go, this one will be getting some more, lightning maroon clowns, some red fire shrimp. There's some cool stuff in here. The convict tang keeps hiding out. I don't know where he's at, or excuse me, not convict. The clown tang's hiding out. Hopefully he'll come back out because he's a cool little fish. But again, guys, appreciate the video. I know I kind of went a little bit longer than I planned on, but if you got any questions, comments, post them up. If you are curious about, how to do things, or even if you're curious about what to put in a tank to start with as far as coral, hit me in the comments. I'll do a video for beginner corals. So anyway, guys, appreciate it and have a good night.